Hello YouTube, this is probably the review that you've been waiting to see. Finally, I'm here to talk about the Bushmaster ACR. I have a cold, so bear with me if I'm sniffly. I'm selling this gun soon, so like you can already tell what I'm going to talk about. I'm selling this gun soon and I have a cold, but I have to do this review because I'm getting rid of it soon. So I wanted to talk about it because I've been saying for so long I'm going to do it. I'll start by saying I bought this gun by myself with my own money. I've owned it for over a year. I'm not in the pockets of anybody. Nobody gave this to me for review. This is my own gun, so I have to detach myself from it emotionally to talk about it objectively because I put so much money in this thing. So I'll give you the details on that as we go along. Overall, it's a decent rifle for those that don't shoot a lot. If you go and take defensive rifle courses and stuff, you'll find that this thing is big, bulky, heavy, and doesn't balance well. And I'm going to be getting into the details of that as we go along, but that is the main reason that the title says that it's Magpul's Junkyard rifle. And I'll talk to you about it why right here after I talk about the configurations. You've got a basic, which includes this fixed stock right here with this Magpul handguard. You've got the folder, which has a folding stock and the regular Magpul handguard. You have the enhanced, which has an aluminum quad rail handguard and the folding stock. And you have a DMR version, and they all are available in black or FDE, flat dark earth. The DMR version has an 18-inch barrel and an adjustable stock back here for like cheek height and length of pull and stuff. And it has that longer barrel, but they're all available in black or flat dark earth. And that's how they're set up. So why was this gun created exactly? Well, it was designed by Magpul as the Masada. It may have been to replace the M4, I'm not really sure. If given more time and money, I think Magpul could have made it successful. The Masood was also never put into production, which is the 308 version of this rifle. That rifle never got past the concept stage. The Masada here, the ACR, the Adaptive Combat Rifle, is the only one that got into production. So what Magpul did was they licensed the design to Bushmaster for production. MSRP is around $2,500. It's really expensive for this gun. Bushmaster currently does not produce any caliber change systems, and I think this is a huge miss because that was one of the main purposes of this gun, was to make it easy to change calibers. That was how they advertised it. It would only require swapping of the barrel and bolt. Of course, the barrel also includes the gas piston and the gas regulator on it. So, you know, basically from here forward, and the bolt itself would need to be changed, but it was supposed to be a quick caliber change system, and it never caught traction, and they sell it as the Bushmaster ACR. So what makes this different than a regular AR-15? Well, the biggest difference is that it has a gas piston system, and the bolt carrier is a different design. It's right in there where it says Cal Multi and how it's kind of open. And I'm gonna actually pull out the bolt carrier whenever we get to that section, but those are the main differences that I can see. The receiver does run cleaner and cooler than DI because it's gas piston, so you don't have any hot gases coming here. If you don't understand the difference between direct gas impingement and piston, I'll post an annotation to my gas piston versus DI video. But it uses the same magazines as an AR and the same trigger. It has a modular polymer trigger with a trigger box that houses this AR-15 trigger. And compared to the SCAR 16S, which is one of the biggest competitions of this gun, a non-AR-15 rifle that shoots 5.56, I think that's a big plus that it uses that trigger. If you look at the price of a SCAR trigger from Geisley or from other manufacturers, you'll find it's extremely expensive. So since AR triggers are so common, this one also gets the nod there. And I'll show you the little trigger box design once I get to the section in the lower receiver. So, upper receiver, bolt carrier. It's very heavy and runs smooth because of the action, which I think can be attributable to the guide rod. This is smoother design than the AR. Refer to the Rock River Arms PDS, that's their piston-driven system, for a similar AR that has, or an AR-15 that has a similar setup here and doesn't run like with a buffer tube. It's a single piece guide rod with a small spring, and it allows the stock to collapse because there's no buffer tube. So I'll show you the bolt carrier here. To take the receiver apart, it's very simple. I just push in that, and you see it's right there. So the design is pretty modular like an AR in that it's pretty easy to take apart and everything. So here's your bolt carrier. You see how huge it is, but you notice this is actually how it rides. So you have a single piece guide right here that runs through the bolt carrier. The piston impacts right here. And you see you can take the bolt carrier out by pushing this forward and then rotating it, and it'll actually come out. If I can get it the right way, there you go. And that's your carrier itself, you know, without the guide rod on it. Get this back where it was. You see the bolt here up front is driven by a spring because it has to be, because that's how gas piston works. When DI guns, it actually pushes this forward, but in piston guns, it pushes the carrier rearward. So this has to be spring loaded, but that also makes the firing pin spring loaded. So it's not necessarily a free floating firing pin. It's pretty easy to take apart. You pop out your little piece right here. There's no retention clip like on an AR's bolt carrier. And then this will pop out, this piece will come out, and your bolt comes out of there. And I already showed you how to take off the guide rod. So the bolt carrier design, it is bigger than an AR, but the fact that you're running on a single piece guide rod right here and it's not actually going into a tube makes the action feel extremely smooth. I mean, it is a really, really smooth shooting gun, so I will talk about it highly there. Now the bolt, like I said, it's spring loaded like all piston ARs have to be, because DI is what actually pushes that bolt forward and drives the carrier to the rear. It's less likely to slam fire than an AR on hard primers. I've never seen this happen. I've just heard someone's told me it's happened. If you're a reloader and you don't seat your primers deep enough, the fact that the firing pin is free floating on an AR may cause it to tap that primer and make that round go off as it's going forward. If you stick with factory ammo, you won't encounter that, like I said. Someone's told me that happened with, with a regular AR with a free-floating thing, and then free-floating firing pin, and the fact that somebody did not push their primers in deep enough when reloading. So that's not a problem you'll encounter if you're not a high-volume shooter and you have good reloading practices. I thought it was worthy of mention there. So same general design as an AR on the bolt. It has 7 lugs and it has an extractor. The extractor may be AR-15 interchangeable, but the bolt itself is not. Disassembly of the entire bolt is very easy, like I talked about. So you see it's spring-loaded. It's easy in that you knock out this little pin and the whole bolt comes out after you pull the firing pin out, after this piece comes out here. So the front of the bolt looks very AR-15 similar. Like I said, this extractor may be changeable, but the bolt itself isn't, because it's gas piston. You see, if you've looked at an AR-15 bolt, it kind of tapers here and goes here into like the gas chamber, I guess you could call it, of the AR's bolt carrier. So it's a similar design, but it is not exactly the same. So I thought I'd mention it there. Now the sighting system and the upper rail. It has a much higher muzzle sight offset than an AR, meaning your muzzle's down here where your round is and your sight is a few inches above it. It does retain the same eye positioning for co-witnessing iron. So if you run an aim point, which I had run an aim point pro on this, or you run a micro or something like that, it will co-witness with AR sight. So it does at least retain that ability. And it's unnecessary for the rail to go all the way to the gas block. Again, I'm going to keep talking about weight because this is a big gun. So I'll just leave the bolt carrier out of it. So here's your upper sighting system. Like I said, there's really no reason for it to go all the way forward up here. I mean, yeah, it does. Maybe if somebody wants to be tactical and add a flashlight or something, but you're going to find that there's already so much weight at the front of this rifle that you're not going to want to do that. You can see the little mark right here where I had my Aimpoint Pro mounted, so I had an Aimpoint Pro mounted right here. It did line up okay. I'm going to get to more on the stock as to why it wasn't as comfortable as an AR later, but overall, lining up with my eye, I never had any trouble picking up the dot. It was pretty easy to find, so that's that. And yeah, the muzzle height, the muzzle sight offset with this rifle is higher than an AR. So, if you're up close, you're going to have to compensate for that, but that could be different with any rifle. So just know those things going in. So the next, the handguard. Or let's see, no, the non-reciprocating charging handle. I love the positioning of the handle. It can be flipped or brought to the other side and is very smooth, and I think that is, again, attributable to the guide rod. So see, here's the little piece that you can either flip this over or you can put it to the other side. I actually think the fatter side of this charging handle is supposed to be forward. I have it flipped so that it's sitting up because I found that when it was low, it kind of got in the way of my hand positioning here. It would kind of be close to it. But you push a little detent in here and you can flip it over. And I love how it's positioned up front, and I like how smooth it is. You really don't feel any slack. It is a very smooth motion. So if there's any really big thing I liked about this over an AR-15, it's probably the charging handle location. I think that by itself is the biggest thing I like over an AR. Now to the handguard. Get the polymer one. Seriously, get the polymer one. The enhanced handguard is huge and unnecessary because of weight. So and I'll explain all this now. So technically, the handguard is free floating, but I'll show you that it actually has some weight on it. I'm running a Magpul AFG, and I like that the Magpul Handguard gives you flexibility to mount rail sections without all the unnecessary rails. And it sports a nicely placed QD point at the back of the handguard. So the QD point I'm talking about is here. That's a huge plus, and you can see that it is ambidextrous. It is on both sides. So the handguard. I like the Magpul handguard, and Magpul was the one that designed this gun, so you can see all the sections that they give you to mount stuff. So I put a rail section on the bottom, put an AFG on there, and it does feel pretty good to me. The enhanced version has rail sections here, here, and here, and I'm pretty sure it's made of aluminum, maybe a light steel or an aluminum, but it's extremely heavy. If you're going to get a rifle, an ACR, I would suggest you stick with the polymer one because it'll give you more flexibility and it won't be as heavy. So now I'll talk about, technically this is a free-floating barrel, but I'll show you the barrel change system here and how it isn't necessarily free-floating. So you see the handle there to take it off. This actually does push on the barrel when it's sitting inside, inside this handguard. The bottom here actually does push on this handle. So it's technically free-floating, but then technically it isn't. So they can advertise it as they want about it being free-floating, but there's parts pushing on that barrel. So it is not 100% free-floating if they mention that. Barrel, it's a 16-inch that I have. If you get a DMR, it's an 18-inch. I forgot to print that out on the first page. I had to write it. M4 profile, unnecessary, heavy. You see the M4 profile. That is made to equip an M203 grenade launcher to one. And since this one has to have the handguard over it for this thing not to flap in the wind, there's no reason for that. I'm pretty sure not Magpul, I'm pretty sure Bushmaster just did that because it's cheap. You're going to see that they actually cut a lot of corners because it was cheap. And that's why I think if Magpul had kept working on this gun, maybe this gun would be a little bit better and inspire a little bit more confidence than it does right now. But in this current setup, that barrel is unnecessary and heavy. And it does come with an A2 flash hider. As you see, I'm running the Rock River Arms Muzzle Break, and I'm going to mention that again later. But it does have a barrel that's threaded just like any other barrel, so you can use an AR flash hider. The barrel is also 109 twist, and that's going to bother some people. It didn't bother me, but I think that if they talk about this thing being revolutionary and so flexible, they should have made a 1-in-7 twist available. That's another miss. If they really wanted this thing to catch on, if they wanted to make the option of it being so flexible and such an adaptive combat rifle, they should have made a freaking 1-in-7 twist barrel. Why did they not do that? So the quick change barrel system is very simple. I'm going to show you in a minute. I had to replace this handle one time because it's cheap. Like, again, I'm saying Bushmaster just didn't really seem to care about it that much, and that was something I had to pay for. So that broke and I had to pay for it. So think what you want about Bushmaster's customer service. I guess I don't really have an opinion because it's the one time I dealt with them and they were pretty good service, but I still had to pay the money for that. That charging handle was, that handle for the barrel was like 60 bucks or something. I did have to pay for that. And the screw does spin itself out if you don't Loctite it. So this handle is held on right there by that little screw there. That's a hex key screw. Again, just seems kind of cheap. I don't know why they didn't pin that in or make it some way that it doesn't just flop out. So I'll show you the barrel change system here. You rotate the barrel down, this handle down, and you see this little button that you push, and then you rotate it by hand this way, and then wiggle it a little bit, and then the barrel just pops right off. Oh, I've got the bolt closed. You also have to open the bolt for it to come off. There you go. Okay. So now that I've got it out here, you see the barrel. There's the piston system, there's the gas block, there's the regulator, and there's the rod. So also one thing that I need to mention, this is a post-recall flat wound piston spring. When I ran it at Tactical Response last year, it shattered the original spring it had into about 100 pieces. The original spring was a standard coil spring, and they sent me this spring for free. So this was something they actually sent me for free, but then again, it was a recall item. They did not send me a replacement handle for free. So, say what you want, think what you want. I think it's kind of crappy. I don't think I should have had to pay for this handle because it broke, on its own accord. That wasn't something that I meant to do, and it should be tough enough to change barrels anyway, since this rifle's so adaptive. But, yeah, I didn't have to pay for the replacement spring there. Okay, I'll show you how to put the barrel back on. It's pretty simple. You just line it up where it was, wiggle it back in place, put the handle back where it was there, and then click it until it's tight. and then that's the barrel change system. So yeah, the barrel change system is really fast and it's very flexible, and I do like it. I just don't understand why Bushmaster didn't make any more caliber changes for this. This came out right around the same time as 6.8 SBC, and they were tooting their horn about this being so adaptive, yet there is still no way to get a conversion kit unless you have someone make it for you. There are some gunsmiths currently making barrel conversion kits. You might be able to find some of them on Gunbroker and some of them on acrforum.com. But again, for this to be such a revolutionary adaptive rifle, you should be able to change the barrels quickly if that's what they advertised it to be so good at doing. But they didn't do that. So I think that may have to do more with Bushmaster. If Magpul had more time to work with it, like I said, they probably could have made it better. But regardless, that's the way it is. So the gas piston system runs clean at the bolt, but dirty up front. So like I said, it keeps all this crap out of here, but up there at the front, where the bolt is, where the gas block is, that's where all the dirt and stuff comes out right there, you know, from the expelled gases. So even though your receiver does stay clean, the front does get really dirty. You can look inside the handguard right here and see all the residue from it. So that's just something from gas piston systems. That's how they work. It takes all the crap that would be in here and puts it up there. Is one more reliable than the other? Well, I don't think so, but in this case, the AR-15 is more reliable because this one choked the first time I went to class with it. It was attributable to that spring, but it still didn't run, whereas I had a Colt that ran the entire time. If you've seen my 6940 review, I mentioned that. The gas piston also only has 2 settings, which is a huge miss. It has suppress and unsuppress, and even though it ran factory ammo 100%, if you're going to put a gas piston on a gun, you should put more than 2 settings. If you look at the Ruger SR556 or the LWRC M6 or the LWRC Reaper or the Ruger SR762, all of them have more than 2 positions on their gas block. The Ruger one, I think, actually has 4 positions that are unsuppressed and then 1 suppressed position. To me, it makes little sense to put something on there and talk about how great this rifle is and not make it more flexible like that. That's a pretty huge miss. I'm running a Rockford Runs muzzle brake. It comes with the A2 birdcage, or the DMR version comes with an AAC threaded flash hider. Like I said, this did help with recoil a lot. This gun is really smooth shooting, but it originally came with an A2 birdcage flash hider, just your regular old run-of-the-mill flash hider. So now the lower receiver. The stock is extremely easy to change. You have 3 options. You've got a fixed, you have the DMR one, which has all the adjustments on it, and you have the folder. And this can be fired folded because it doesn't have a buffer tube. So you see here, you push this button, and you got it folded, and you see it does not cover the ejection port. I have fired it like this. It's ridiculous how heavy it feels in your hand. It's really dumb to fire it that way. Friends just, you know, just do it for fun because it's funny. But but it's extremely hard to shoot that way. It's very, very difficult. So you can take the stock off and you can shoot it with the stock back. But yeah, it's very, very difficult to shoot that way because it's so heavy. This does show you, though, the stock here does have a battery compartment. So you can put spare batteries on there, and you see the Magpul logo. I'm not sure if Magpul still makes the accessories for this gun, but if you look at it, the texturing on the magwell, too, is a bunch of little Magpul logos. The same thing with the grip. You see the Magpul logo. So Magpul may still make the accessories for this. Maybe they're the one that builds the stocks. But when I bought the replacement stock, which was the folder, and this is the fixed one that it came with, it came in a Bushmaster box, but again, you see Magpul logos on this thing. So, I don't know. I'm not sure who makes it. I'm not sure which one still does, but regardless, that's that. And now I was talking about how easy it is to change it out. It is extremely easy. This rifle is very easy to take apart. So, there's your upper receiver part breaking open. You pull another little tab, and the stock, after some wiggling because it's dirty and such, will come right off. So you see right there, it's off. The stock does have to be on it to fire because your your bolt carrier guide rod here has to have something to push on. So it won't fire completely without a stock on it, but it will fire with the stock folded. And there's the trigger box. And I'm going to talk about the trigger box in a minute. So it has a variable cheek piece on the stock too. It only has 2 settings. It can either be up or it can be down. Now that I have the stock off, I'll show you. This may be the longest video I've ever done. You see the cheek piece here, you can pull it back and either make it flush, or you can pull it up. I mean, yeah, it gives you a little bit of cheek height. It's not anything super revolutionary. It's not anything crazy. One thing I don't like about the stock is this gigantic gap right here. Because if you're going to it quickly and you have it fully extended because you're tall and you try to put your cheek right here, you're going to hit the edge of that plastic and that's not going to be comfortable. I do like that the stock does have 7 positions. So I do say that right here. 7 position stock. I like the flexibility. It has a single point sling attachment. It's bad placement and obtrusive. I removed it. It has a storage compartment in the folder that I showed you for batteries, and it does have a QD point and a regular sling attachment point. So here's the single sling attachment point. See the big hook right there? When I was running this on my chest, that thing was just driving into me. It was so annoying, so I took it off of this one. And I do like the QD mount on here. If you notice on a lot of Magpul stocks for ARs, they have a quick detach point on their stocks. This one you can flip to the other side, so it is not ambi, but it's flippable. So if you're left-handed, this would be decent. But like I said, I don't like that gigantic gap there. That's not extremely comfortable. The grip, it's fixed. There's no option for change. It's somewhat comfortable, but it does fit a spare bolt and firing pin. So let me take the lower receiver off this rifle. This one is a little bit tighter fit than the upper. So you see, you pull this pin out, and then your lower receiver comes off. So I do like the modularity of this rifle about how easy it is to take apart. But regardless, it is what it is. So the grip, it has really no tapering. You see how it's just huge. I do like the room in the trigger guard. It's pretty big. It's kind of large for gloved hands, I guess. And I like that you can fit a spare, it says CR123, so I guess you can fit spare batteries or you can fit a spare bolt in there. It says CR123, but I bet you could fit a carrier in there. So it has a storage compartment. Maybe you can or can't fit a bolt, I don't know. I've never done it before. Maybe I should have run a spare bolt in this thing since it didn't run the way it was, but regardless, you can run a spare something in the grip. Now trigger. It uses an AR trigger system, and I think this is a win. I have a Rock River Arms National Match 2-stage trigger, which is really comfortable, very clean break, very good. I'd have to do a separate video on that. Safety lever is extremely cheap and obtrusive on the weak side. It's very spongy actuation, and it has a ghost spot. So here's the safety. It is ambidextrous, but if you look inside here, all the pieces that actuate the safety are plastic. And the only thing put tension on it is this little tab right here. And that doesn't have a whole lot of tension on it. So I usually actuate this thing with my right hand since it's ambi. When it's down, yes, it does get in the way a little bit. It is obtrusive, and it just kind of sticks out really far. And like I said, the actuation feels cheap, so when I was running this in a drill, I try to flick this down quickly, and it would usually stick right about there. So see this ghost area? It's almost impossible to get an AR safety to stick in this area if it's a quality made gun. So I'd pull it down about to right here, and I'm like trying to shoot it. I'm like, what the hell, it's not going. Well, it wasn't actuated all the way. Now it'll shoot. You see the hammer right there. I don't like the safety at all. That may be part of the design because of this trigger box I was telling you about right here. This is one contained piece. You can actually take this whole thing out. You like pull this up and rotate the safeties and pull them out, and the whole trigger box comes out. So it does make swapping out AR triggers easy because this whole box comes out, but I don't think that's a good trade-off for how cheap feeling the safety is. So, you know, it is what it is. Mag release is ambi. It does use AR mags, and the mag well is textured, and I found ejection to be pretty smooth. So here's your mag release. See on either side, it pushes out that thing. So it is, in fact, ambidextrous. This is not a one side that has to be flipped. It is ambidextrous. Then the bolt release. Very good positioning, and it may actually be the reason that the bad lever was invented for ARs. So here's your bolt release right here. So you'd pull the charging handle back and pull up on that, and you see it pulls this piece up, and that actually locks your bolt back. So then you can put another one in, push that down, it slams the bolt home. I like the positioning of that, and I'm not sure if that's why Magpul made the bad lever, you know, the one that goes across your thing. I'll show a pic. But I'm not sure why they, if that's why they made the bad lever, but regardless, that's really, really comfortable positioning, and I like where it is. So, shooting impressions. Well, 100% reliable with factory ammo, not with my reloads that all other AR-15s run, but, more gas settings would be helpful. If you're not a reloader, that's probably not a big deal. You'll probably get decent reliability out of this gun. It's extremely soft shooting, which I think is attributable to the guide rod, the weight, and the muzzle brake. I'm sorry that I don't have more shooting footage of this gun. It's just hard for me to get enthusiastic about this gun anymore because really I just want to sell it so bad. I don't absolutely despise it, but after running some classes with it and seeing how good the AR platform is, I'm pretty ready to get rid of this thing. So I'd have more shooting footage and run it like crazy if it would run comfortably, but it just doesn't. It's just too damn heavy. It has horrible weight balance. 60 to 70% of the weight is at the handguard. It's a heavy rifle altogether at 8 to 10 pounds. AR-15's DI system balances much better because most of the weight in that setup is at the base of the barrel and receiver. So on an AR, pretend this is an AR-15 for a second, most of your weight would be right in here. On the ACR, most of your weight is up here. So when you have the rifle pointed out on a target and you're trying to take your time engaging or whatever, your arm and shoulder are going to be on fire because this gun is so heavy and most of the weight is forward. So in my opinion, it just has horrible weight balance. If it had a lighter profile barrel, that may help with the weight. If the gas piston system had been tweaked a little bit more, it may be lighter with the weight, but this gun is friggin' heavy. And if you hold the stock and the lower receiver, these weigh nothing. Almost all of the weight is here and almost all of it is up there. So the weight balance just sucks. It's really bad. Things I do like, the sling attachment is very nice and well positioned, so I like that they have a QD point here, and then they have one also on the stock right there on the fixed version, same thing on the folder, it's right there. I do like the sling points, that's pretty cool. The gap in the cheek piece was annoying at times, like I talked about, when this is extended. You have this big opening here. I think the same thing happens with the SCAR 16S, but I'm not positive. But on AR, since you have a buffer tube, you can't really avoid that. You're not going to have that big gap, although I think I have seen some stocks that are gapped like that. So that's just something I don't like in general. It's probably something you could change on your AR. I like the charging handle position. That was probably the biggest plus of this thing, was how easy it was to get to. I loved where it was. The sights lined up pretty well. Like I said, I ran an Aimpoint Pro on this, which probably made it heavier because an Aimpoint Pro almost weighs a pound. If I had run an Aimpoint Micro, it may have been slightly better. But regardless, it still lined up okay, and that wasn't the main reason I didn't like it. Overall, if you take defensive rifle courses, don't get this rifle. If you want one as a collector's item or just for fun, then get it. I really, really wanted to love this gun, and I will say that a bunch. I really wanted to like this gun. I mean, hell, I spent $1,500 on this gun, buying it used with a lot of rounds through it. So this was not a cheap gun for me, and I spent my own money. And I kind of have to chew my own words and swallow my pride when I review this and rip on it because I spent so much money on this thing. But if there are any positives I can say, it's that I like the modularity, how easy it is to take apart. I like how quick the barrel is to take off, and I like the charging handle position. But if Magpul was going to design a rifle that was so flexible in changing calibers and changing barrels and twist rates and everything, they should have kept going with it. They just gave up and they tossed it off to Bushmaster. And now Bushmaster is making decent parts for it, but still some low quality stuff that you usually have to pay for because they don't really seem to have as good a customer service as other manufacturers I've dealt with. But regardless, here's the ACR review. You either like it, love it, whatever. This is my take on it. So thank you for watching, and post in comments if you have questions.